by PM peak trip. And these funds are very specifically labeled. They can only be used towards those projects. Now, those projects will need other funds too, but you can't use these for just any project there. So it really is a method for growth to kind of pay for growth as it occurs. And these two maps are just kind of a representation of the projects that are on the traffic impact fee study, the project list. They include both non-motorized improvements, but also corridor improvements like Shaw Road and 9th Street Southwest, and several of the intersections labeled up there in red. And then this is a slide that we showed last week, emphasizing that what we're going to do is begin this new fee in January 1st, 2027. Applications that are in place at the time of complete building permit application will be vested to the current TIF fees that are in place when they vest. And then the developer has the option, if they choose, they can either pay those at the time of permit issuance, or they can ask for a deferral. And if they do defer, those vested fees will continue for until they reach certificate of occupancy or 18 months, whichever comes sooner. A couple of policy choices that we've made here. We're going to index the traffic impact fee to inflation, so we keep up with the cost of projects that are rising. We have some specific reductions in the fee for certain types of land use. Some of these are dictated as it's an option for a city to choose these reductions, such as the early learning center or the low income, and that gives up to an 80% reduction in their traffic impact fees. Some are mandated, along with the idea of providing more housing options. The reduction for ADU is mandated at 50%, so we don't really have a choice on that one. And also a reduction of 50% for the multifamily residentials that do the 20-year claim the 20-year tax exemption. That's where you need to have 20% of your units be low income, and they also have to be within half a mile of the transit center. And then we lack previous land uses, so as development occurs, we look back the years. What that was decided was looking back up to 10 years for the previous land use and how many trips that was generated. Those will be credited against a new redevelopment at that site. So it recognizes that some of those trips are already kind of baked into the amount of traffic. And then one other item that we've added is a heavy truck trip adjustment, recognizing that trucks take up a lot more room than a car, but that only applies to industrial land uses, where we increase the fee to account for those the heavy trucks that are generated by that land use. And then this is a slide, I apologize, it's in error. It's supposed to be, there's a credit given as a developer does improvements on their site. So if they build frontage and road that is part of a system improvement, increasing the capacity, they get a credit against their TIF fees for the cost of those improvements there, because they're part of the whole system, and so they're improving that. And so the next steps, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but we hold the public hearing and then we consider the second reading of the ordinance. And that's the end of my presentation today.
Okay, we'll now open up our public hearing for citizen comments. Each citizen is allowed to speak for 2 minutes. Do I have anyone that wishes to speak?
Good evening, Council. For the record, Aaron Holmberg. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Pierce County Master Builders Association, but more importantly, resident of District 1. So happy to be here. Short commute back to home. Not really, again, impact fees, right? Again, this will ultimately impact affordability and will raise the cost of housing, but I'm more or less here just to kind of offer some information. We've shared the data before, but we have national studies that show for a resident of Puyallup could expect to pay, $10,000 on their home instead of the $4,000 and change it is now. So, really, this is impact fees, and we're not. Let me be clear. Sorry, let me back up. We're not against infrastructure. As you heard, a lot of developers and builders and home builders, specifically in Puyallup, do a lot of offsite improvements or sewer extensions or sidewalks elsewhere, so we don't have sidewalks to nowhere. It's not an anti-infrastructure. It's just if we can get support and advocacy on a way of how we do and calculate and collect impact fees to really limit the burden it is for the consumer. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals wishing to speak on this matter? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Do I hear a motion to approve the second reading of the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, and is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please so indicate.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And Mr. Mayor,
This is second reading, so we will
Mr.
have
Mayor,
a roll call vote.
Councilmember Gillum,
Aye.
Councilmember Smolko,
Aye.
Councilmember Adler,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember King,
Aye.
Mayor Whitting.
Aye. Okay, we'll now move on to item 5A, a second reading of an ordinance providing for additional public parking around 311 West Pioneer and a 3-hour time limit. We discussed this at length at our last meeting. Is there any further discussion? Deputy Mayor Johnson.
I just make a motion to pass the second reading as stated in 5A.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please so indicate.
Aye.
Any opposed? Second reading passes. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Smolko,
Aye.
Councilmember Adler,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember King,
Aye.
Councilmember Gillum,
Aye.
Mayor Whitting.
Aye. Okay, our next, we'll move on to resolutions 6A and 6B. We'll take those as a little bit together. They're resolutions authorizing an 8-year limited multifamily property tax exemption for 2 related properties, and we'll have a presentation by Senior Planner Chris Beal.
Well, thank you, Mayor and City Council. My name is Chris Beal. I work in the Planning Division. Tonight, we're giving a short presentation on the temporary multifamily tax exemption proposals for the AOB and Bell Place development sites. The multifamily tax exemption program provides opportunities for cities and counties to encourage development of multifamily in certain targeted areas. We have a few of those targeted areas. Both of these development proposals are within our downtown. Those are called residential target areas. We offer a 8-year or 12-year tax exemption. 12-year tax exemption proposals require a certain level of affordable housing within each of the developments. Both of these proposals are for 8-year. So MFTEs, multifamily tax exemptions, provide a short-term benefit by exempting the residential improvements from taxation, but the land and any kind of commercial improvements, such as if it's a mixed-use development, which some of these 2 developments are still taxed. So it provides that short-term 8-year time window for tax exemption. So again, these are both 8-year MFTEs. They're a mix of studio and 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. The Bell Place project is 100 market rate units, and AOB is 140 market rate units for a total of 240. This is a map. Sorry, that's a little zoomed out, but this is the Bell Place project. It is just west of the substation, the police substation on Pioneer, near 4th and 5th. And then the AOB project is right behind the Senior Activity Center and the library, just to the south of the Activity Center. So the process, we're here tonight at the very beginning of the conditional certificate approval process. The City Council reviews the MFTE contract and approves a resolution. The project needs to finish construction within 3 years of the contract execution. Both of these projects are currently in for active civil or site development and building permits right now, so we're actively working with the developer on that process for the permitting. After that process, the final MFTE certificate is issued once the units are constructed, and that authorizes the tax exemption with the tax assessor's office. And then there's the 8-year window. After the 8-year window, the temporary tax exemption sunsets, and we collect regular taxes on both of the projects. So again, sorry, this is a little bit unreadable, but this essentially kind of gives you a bar graph showing the temporary blip in the beginning of the process for both the Bell Place project and the AOB project, and then over time, the aggregated taxes that are collected over a 50-year period. So as you'll see here, we do take a little bit of a hit during that 8-year time window range. There's sort of a net negative cost to that, but again, over time, the revenues do increase, and this is pretty normal for these type of developments. The city's trading off some of that short-term loss in tax revenue for the long-term benefit of having the dwelling units here in the city. So tonight, the council action would be to approve the resolution authorizing us to sign the contract and move forward with the MFT process with the developer while they do the permitting and the construction. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we've discussed this before. I think there's a consensus on council, but certainly we could open it up to questions. But if there's not, I'd like to just make a motion that we move this forward on both these resolutions. I'm assuming we can make a motion. We can group these together, I think, couldn't we, City Attorney, if we wanted to, since they're kind of the same developer? Do we have to do a separate motion on each one for 6A and 6B?
It is two separate resolutions, so protocol would be to go through them both, or each by themselves.
All right, we'll start out with 6A, then I'd like to make a motion that we authorize this resolution, authorizing this 8-year limited multifamily tax exemption then.
Second.
Councilmember Smolko.
Thank you, Mayor Whitting. Couple of questions. One, can we don't need to go back to the slide if you know this is maybe the estimated range for, I got that 11 to 18,000-ish, was 17.4 something for the first property in terms of the estimated total value of the tax exemption. What do you know off the top of your head what the value is in the tax exemption for those 8 years for the second property, EOB, I believe?
We can go back to that
I think it was the penultimate
slide.
slide, or nope, there we go.
This one?
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. That was my first question.
Yep. AOB is a little bit larger, so there's a little
Yes.
bit more of a hit. Yep.
And that's a huge range. Okay, and then my second question was, I saw that the projects are supposed to finish construction within 3 years of contract execution. What are the recapture or penalty provisions if the developer doesn't meet the agreement terms?
I would have to look into the contract to tell you that. I actually don't know that off the top of my head. I don't know if the city attorney could answer that question or not.
If they don't meet the terms of the contract, my memory, having looked at it a couple of days ago, is that they simply don't comply. Aren't eligible for the tax relief. I can double check that for you and correct that if I'm incorrect, but I'm 99% sure that's how it works.
Okay, I just love some accountability, so I just wanted to check on that. And I think those were my two questions for this first one. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Seeing no further hands raised, we have a motion, resolution 6A on the table. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please so indicate.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Mayor, could I do the same for 6B, please? Make a motion.
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. I don't think there's any reason for discussion, so all those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to item 7A, an informational presentation regarding proposal title 20 zoning code amendments. And we'll have our Director of Development and Permitting Services, Courtney Brunell, with a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council. I'm Courtney Brunell, your Development and Permitting Services Director, here tonight to present you with an overview of a zoning code update that will be forward for first reading early next month. As background, Council adopted the comprehensive plan last year, and subsequent to that, this last February, adopted phase 1 of our zoning map updates. So this ordinance includes several related code updates that are intended to align the revised zoning map with now the zoning code and those prior actions in the comprehensive plan, as well as to address some implementation issues that staff have identified. Tonight, we will review each section of the ordinance, including updating the zoning district list for consistency with the adopted zoning map, allowing certain auto-oriented uses in the RMX zone, allowing standalone multifamily in the MX zones, increasing density in both the RMX and UCX zone, increasing the size allowance for incidental signs on private property, and appeals specific to site plan review. First, the zoning district list. This is a very minor housekeeping item and honestly is only included in the PowerPoint for full transparency and being on the record. This is a amendment that simply updates the zoning district list to match the zoning map that was already adopted by council and removes zoning classifications that are no longer reflected on the map. Next, based on prior policy direction, Section 2 of the ordinance would allow certain auto-oriented uses, such as vehicle sales and service uses, within the RMX zone where they are currently restricted. This proposal is based on prior council conversations related to allowing these uses on the north side of River Road and portions of Meridian. And later on in the presentation, I do have a map that outlines this specific zone. This intent is to align the zoning code with that prior policy direction and maintain flexibility within our commercial corridors. Next, this amendment would allow multifamily and townhouse developments to occur as standalone residential projects within mixed-use zones rather than requiring a commercial component. This aligns with direction and adopted policy found in the comprehensive plan. It also provides additional flexibility for smaller infill housing projects that may or may not realistically be supported by commercial space. From a practical standpoint, staff has found that requiring commercial components on every mixed-use property can sometimes create vacant commercial spaces, or developers are using their leasing office alone to fulfill that commercial component. This amendment provides more flexibility while still allowing mixed-use development where market conditions support it. The next topic relates to residential density in the RMX and UCX zones. These two maps illustrate the areas that would be impacted by this amendment as drafted. This is our RMX zone, so this is also the zone for the auto-oriented uses, and this is our UCX zone. This UCX zone was recently expanded as part of the phase 1 of the zoning map to go down the Meridian. The policy direction in the comprehensive plan recommends increasing the density in RMX and UCX zones to more closely resemble what is found in RM Core. RM Core does not currently have a density cap, and at first glance, moving forward towards unlimited density may sound like a significant jump from the existing 18 to up to 22 dwelling units per acre. However, practically speaking, development intensity is still constrained by other standards, including our parking requirements, setbacks, landscaping, building height, lot coverage, circulation, stormwater, and overall site design. Should council have concerns with unlimited density, staff went back to our consultant team and discussed whether there was a reasonable middle ground. Their analysis essentially concluded that based on existing development standards within the code, particularly parking requirements, the practical development yield would still top out somewhere around 50 dwelling units per acre, even without a formal cap. As a result, they suggested that if council was not in favor of removing the density cap entirely in these zones, a maximum density of 50 dwelling units per acre would still likely achieve the city's planning goals while remaining realistic and achievable from a development standpoint. So tonight, staff is primarily seeking policy feedback regarding comfort level and whether we're looking to maintain the current density standards, increase to 50 dwelling units per acre, or remove the density cap altogether. And if I may, Mayor, I would like to pause there and invite any direction or questions related to this specific provision in the ordinance.
Deputy Mayor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Courtney, we do have areas in the city currently that have no maximum density imposed zoning, isn't that correct?
We do. Next to this 22 dwelling units per acre, our next highest zones are unlimited. So
Yeah.
there is no current jump or gap.
So this is not
between
inconsistent with
unlimited.
other areas that are already targeted in our city. In fact, I think we've seen the AOB lot, the Bell lot are the zones that are no maximum density, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so I like the idea of expanding these areas into no maximum density, and it's consistent with other high targeted areas in our city. And most of these areas are not in residential areas, so they're very much, centrally located in very busy areas of our town. So to allow maximum density would behoove us to concentrate those units and also make it more affordable. I would imagine that, when it pencils out nicely when you have no maximum density, you can really, in a sense, go up and create more units and get more population and hopefully price down if we ever get some sellable units. So I would like to give recommendations and hope the council might consider being consistent with these two areas to match what we're already doing in our downtown core, mostly in our downtown core, especially by the railroad or by the train station, that we would expand this to no maximum density zoning limits. I think would be reasonable. So that's my hope for direction. Thank you.
Councilmember Gilliam.
I'm just curious about the parking requirements for unlimited density. Like, what can we do about that? What
It
are
would
the
still
thoughts?
be, yes, thank you, Councilmember. It would still be directly based off of the underlying use. And so for our existing parking for multifamily, I believe it's a 1-to-1, or it depends on the zone, but it would be 1-to-1 would be the minimum until we look at revising our parking regulations, given the recent state legislation where we have to look at further reductions. However, adjacent to Meridian, so unless we are looking at where within the transit-oriented development corridor, so that's half mile from a transit station, we can continue to have that 1-to-1 ratio for residential unit and parking stalls.
Thank you.
So just a quick question there, that obviously there's going to be 0 parking requirements according to state code in the not too distant future. I'm assuming that none of these areas, the Meridian corridor and the River Road corridor, are far enough from the transit station to not be allowed to have that.
I don't believe that either of those areas fall within the transit-oriented development district, but prior to first reading, I'll bring a map so that you know exactly where those overlays are.
Yeah, I'll need that to approve that.
Great.
Councilmember Smolko.
Thank you, Mayor Whitting. Point of ignorance here, so please bear with me, just from being a newbie. I was told that there has been a history of a lack of developer interest in this area, and also that a lot of it is already owned by current auto sales lot owners. Is that accurate? Why has there been such limited interest, do you think, or do people think, in the experts in the room or elsewhere, why has there been such limited interest in development of residential properties in this space, do you think?
To clarify, are you referring to RMX?
Yes.
And the provision and changes there?
Correct.
You know, I can't speak to the market, having been here for a limited amount of time, but I will say that the interest that we have received has been specifically in auto-oriented uses in this area. And I think when the council originally adopted Chapter 13, or Title 13 of the Comprehensive Plan, which is the River Road Corridor Master Plan, there was this concept that was brought as part of it that it was going to become more of a river walk trail type center. And what we found since that was adopted over a decade ago, I believe, or close to, is that never came to fruition. And so hard to really know what the deterrent from that would be. Perhaps density restrictions, perhaps it is just that River Road, you know, it is such a large amount of driving aisle and space. It's not really pedestrian friendly, but I think it's fair to say that vision has not been realized, and there's been ample opportunity for the market to be able to respond to that if there was interest. What we hear at the staff level is interest in drive-throughs, car sales, more auto-oriented uses that would support the interchange there.
Gotcha. I think I understand that. I'm wrestling with the fact that we just approved 2 MFTE issues tonight for the same-ish downtown area, or that area down there in that space. And I'm just wondering if we've marketed those tools that we've just talked about with the other issues to that same area.
So different areas. The RMX zone, I do not believe is currently included in our multifamily tax.
No, it's not, but I'm just
area.
wondering if we're trying to increase housing affordability, trying to increase access to residential living. I'm just trying to pull apart a little bit, maybe some history, and then just so that I understand.
From an economic development perspective, I am not sure that the city has done proactive marketing in order to incentivize additional residential development in this area. And I pulled up the slide for that section of the city specifically.
Right.
So it is set back a ways from the downtown. Of course, you have River Road and Meridian, both of which are auto-focused. And I think that there is certainly a possibility with council's direction, if we wanted to try to revitalize Title 13, to try to incentivize and do some additional marketing, but ultimately these are all privately owned properties. And what we found is that the market has not directed us in that way, and instead it seems that the higher desire is for a continuation of the uses that are largely already there, which are the auto sales and retail.
Seems clear too. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Courtney, if I'm understanding correctly, it seems like that we're doing two things in some of these zoning changes. We're expanding the potential uses of that property for other, potential business expansion, and we're also potentially increasing density. So this could address some of the things that Councilmember Smolko is mentioning, maybe with the expansion of other zoning applications and the increased potential no maximum density. It could stimulate, maybe some new development, whether it be through other auto or through some higher density housing. Because maybe, I'm just thinking out loud, maybe the pencils didn't work out too well because the density was so low that it didn't pencil out. But maybe having this no maximum density now might say, hey, listen, we can go up and develop more. Now it might be more appealing to the market. So it seems like we're expanding with additional uses potential, and raising the bar on density living might stimulate this in a way that it gets what we want. So that's my thoughts on that. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I'm seeing your name still up there. Councilmember Smolko, okay. I'm not seeing any further discussion there, so you can move on with your presentation.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Another relatively small housekeeping item, we are proposing to amend and increase the allowable sign for small incidental signs that are exempt from sign permit requirements, and adding a maximum height standard. Frankly, what we have found is that through implementation, the existing standard is often too small, particularly for on-site wayfinding signage. It's created challenges for businesses trying to provide directional signage just on their private property. One recent example is the new McDonald's at the corner of Shaw and Pioneer. Relatively large property, need for additional signage and directional signage, hard to find once you get off of Shaw Road. And so this amendment is really intended to modernize the standard and make it more practical while still maintaining some reasonable limitations of what's exempt from a permit. And last, this amendment addresses a procedural gap that staff has identified related to preliminary site plan approvals. Currently, applicants generally only have an appeal path through SEPA or LUPA. However, within portions of the downtown already covered by the FEIS, there is no SEPA appeal mechanism available. And so this amendment is intended to clarify the existing administrative appeal process and no longer explicitly prohibit site plan appeal unless it's filed in conjunction with SEPA. From a practical standpoint, staff believes that this amendment will provide us with more flexibility in order to work collaboratively with developers for conditions of approval, and it creates a cleaner process without avoiding confusion at best, and at worst, a separate SEPA addendum or supplemental environmental review. This package is currently before the Planning Commission, and a public hearing is scheduled for tomorrow evening. Following that hearing, the ordinance is tentatively scheduled to return to you at your first meeting in June for first reading on June 2nd and second reading on June 16th. I also want to emphasize that this is really our first bite at the apple this year when it comes to the zoning code. Staff anticipates bringing forward additional amendments related to phase 2 of the zoning map and text changes later this fall, likely around September, followed by additional work related to clear and objective design standards at the end of this year. Some of the amendments you saw tonight really reflect that ongoing evolution and lessons learned through implementation, and everything included in this package can absolutely be amended, modified, or removed if council feels that additional deliberation or direction is needed before moving forward. So that concludes my presentation. With that, I'm happy to receive direction and respond to comments.
Councilmember Adler.
Thank you, Courtney. Appreciate it. Can we go back to the sign slide? I just have a question regarding, or I want to crosswalk my knowledge rather. Let me back up. Will this, do we think that, or believe that this will have an impact on those during fair season that provide, or is this, because this is, I want to make sure that we're going to be consistent across the city. So is this just this is going to be in the code for citywide.
It would be, yes.
So that means that I just want to make sure this is how I'm just going to phrase it. Probably be easier for everyone. Whether they're permanent or not, I just want those to be consistent. When I was very young, and I've shared before that one of my first jobs was helping my family park cars on my grandparents' property, which they did for 60 years. And I remember one time I was the flagger in the front, and a code enforcement officer came by and essentially said that my grandfather's sign for parking was too high. And so I just, I literally was probably 10 years old, so it doesn't matter, but, and things have changed since then. I just want to make sure that we're consistent and we still allow flexibility for those temporary signs, particularly given what this council passed several years ago to requirements to private property owners that do short-term parking for the fair. So just sharing that.
Thank you. This draft ordinance doesn't make any changes to those provisions, and prior to first reading, I'll refamiliarize myself with them to make sure what the actual standards are and share that with you. Thank you.
Okay, I'll weigh in a little bit here. I'd just like to preface my remarks by I hate signs. Understanding that they're point taken. So a few years ago, we responded to sign things about not being able to categorize our signs by whether it's political or commercial or whatever. So we've allowed, that causes to allow more signage within our community. And so we can have commercial signs where we have historically only allowed political signs. And so now we're talking about expanding the size of those. And I'm a little concerned about the impact of those. If I can put a political sign that's 2 square feet in my front yard, then I can put a commercial sign that's 2 square feet in my front yard. And we all have gotten used to those and don't get too excited about it. But all of a sudden going to 6 square feet in my front yard or my neighbor's front yard seems, I don't know how big a 6 square foot sign is and what it would look like, but I've got a little bit of concern there. And I'm going to have to go home and cut out a piece of a 6-foot sign and take a look at it. But I do have a little bit of concern there. Deputy Mayor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to go back to Councilor Adler's point. I think what she's trying to say. When I'm reading this, it seems to me that it may not apply to parking or even campaign signs. I think it says they're permanent signs. So these others would be temporary. Fair is temporary, political is temporary. So those standards would be required or implied. These are like permanent commercial where you have a brick and mortar business, and these are signs that would be in there. So I think some of the concerns that we have for consistency may not be an issue, and it would be too unburdensome for temporary, type deals. So that's my thought on that. And then I wanted to kind of, Courtney, give some thoughts or direction. I really, as you're going through some of the other things, there's some housekeeping on here. I remember shortly after I got elected, it was 2 years after I got elected, Councilor Castema at the time, former Mayor Castema, and now Councilmember again, he really led the charge for efficiency in city government, and he introduced the Baldrige and the Lean and the Six Sigma, and shortly after that, the council, supported that concept and came up with ways on how various departments can, make city government more efficient. And then I want to go back to a story that the lights went on with me, and many of you have heard this before, but just worthy of a refresher. I remember as an elected official trying to understand industry and what they're going through when it comes to bureaucracy and how frustrating it can be, but more than frustrating was this. I remember sitting down with a developer and he said to me, Dean, he says, man, we really don't like traffic impact fees. We don't really like the permit fees and all of these things. We really don't like them. He goes, but we don't mind them because we know in advance what those fees are going to be. We pencil that into the project, and either it pencils and it makes sense or it doesn't. He goes, but what really kills us is unpredictability of delays and you didn't perceive. So getting back to the point is that whatever we can do as a bureaucracy to streamline and make the process more efficient is good for economic development, and it's good for investments. So you've made some motions on, or some recommendations on these other slides in terms of, what's that next, can you go that next slide for? Some of the SEPA or whatever, SEPA, you're talking about that. Whatever we can do to streamline this, make it quicker, we should do it. And I would even kind of charge you and staff to look at ways to further streamline. We appreciate all of the various procedures that have been traditionally in place throughout our city, but maybe are antiquated and out of date, and we need to refresh it. For example, such as the design review board. I know there's some options out there that could make that more efficient and effective with some administrative review. So I think our city staff should look at ways to allow the system to be more efficient while still covering the checks and balances. We're not going to open it up wide to where it's havoc. But if staff could provide these things at a much more systematic and smoother way rather than glitchy, we should be doing that. So I would invite you to go back and take a look at that. And then I will state this. Normally I wouldn't state that. But really I want to give credit to City Manager Steve and all of their staff here. When you have the right people and staff in place, you're comfortable to say that, because you know you're entrusting that with people who are going to be efficient and you trust in their expertise. So as I'm looking out to staff today, yourself and everyone here, I'm very comfortable and trust your expertise that would allow for a more efficient process of bureaucracy to allow investors to have a reasonable time frame without delaying it through traditions that have at one point served a purpose but may not be necessary, that can be handled administratively. So I hope that gives you some thoughts to think about, and I hope it gives council some added support on that. Whatever we could do to streamline, make things better while still maintaining a high standard is a win-win situation. And so I can say that confidently because of the staff that we have right now in our city, and I know that it would be efficient if you found some ways. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I don't see any other people wishing to speak, so I think, have you got the direction you're looking for?
Yes, thank you, Council.
Thank you. Okay, so that concludes our business section, and we'll turn to our city manager for his report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No meeting the next 2 weeks, and then of course one of those is because of Memorial Day. And your next meeting will be on June 2nd. And one of the main items on that agenda, there's a couple items that we're still working on, but one of them will be on traffic calming. And so at your retreat in February, that was a focus of charging staff with how can we become more proactive in our traffic calming program. And so various departments have worked to come up with some ideas that want to present that to you on June 2nd. So that will be an item. There's a few other items we're still working on, but at this point, that will be one of the main items. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Smolko.
Well, thank you. Not a lot to report, but I went to my very first SIP event on Saturday. I had never gone to that before, and that was amazing. What an incredible thing for like every facet of the community, for businesses, for patrons, for distributors of alcohol. Lots of cool crossover connections to be made there, and discovered a lot of new shops and restaurants, and that was fun. Thank you.
Councilmember King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not a whole lot. Glad to be back in person this week, and looking forward to the launch of our Memorial 250 Fund. And we were able to put together some great information today in a meeting that we had earlier this afternoon, and I am looking forward to debuting that information very shortly. For those of you that are watching, feel free to email me if you are looking to make a pledge towards this memorial at dking@puyallupwad.gov. And we will put you on the list so that way when it does launch, you can have opportunities to contribute to this great memorial. And that is all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Adler.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to again thank everyone who joined us this evening for Military Appreciation Month proclamation. What Mr. Wielden shared from the podium is correct. Per staff research, it appears that the city had not issued a proclamation for Military Appreciation Month until now. So I appreciate my colleagues being supportive of the proclamation that I put forward. And I look forward to joining and standing shoulder to shoulder with many in our community over Memorial Day weekend at the various events, honoring those who we've lost, have sacrificed everything. It is, despite the sometimes and often tough ceremonies that take place during Memorial Day and Memorial Day weekend, it is really remarkable the many opportunities that we have in Puyallup to pay our respects and support our military. And I really appreciate the hard work that goes into ensuring that we have those opportunities. Outside of that, I think that's all for me today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gilliam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to echo my colleagues in honoring our veterans that give up their lives for our country. I'm excited to be with our community as we celebrate that in the next 2 weeks. But I also wanted to report that I had an opportunity to pour wine for SIP Puyallup on Saturday, and I thoroughly enjoyed meeting all the people that came from other communities to enjoy our Puyallup. It was just a joy to rub shoulders and meet new people and laugh and encourage them to check out the different shops. Of course, I'm a social butterfly, so I was living my best life in that day. But prior to that was our beautiful, very well attended farmers market. We continue to thrive. We continue to bring people from outside our community and inside our community to just enjoy one another. So I really, really enjoy that as well. And I will say thank you so much.
Deputy Mayor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Three things. We had the prayer breakfast last Thursday. It happened to be on National Day of Prayer, but it was the Pierce County Prayer Breakfast over at the Washington State Fairgrounds, and it was a tremendous show up of over 1,100 people showed up to express their faith as guaranteed by the First Amendment of our Constitution, allowing us to express that. And we had a special guest who showed up. Our Governor, Bob Ferguson, showed up and was there. And it was really quite remarkable in this sense. I had a chance to introduce the governor, and I knew that there were some people in there that probably weren't, big fans of him, and that's to be said with any political official. But I need to remind folks that this wasn't a political rally. It wasn't an R or a D. This is simply a place to pray and to acknowledge faith. And it was interesting because I found that it was an opportunity to remind ourselves that not everything is politics. Politics is super important, and believe me, I'm involved in politics, and so I certainly understand that. But there's a time to step away from politics and realize that there are human beings in the same room who have different perspectives, who have same passions. They love their family, and their family loves them, and they've had different life experiences. And sometimes we let the politics become such a spotlight and beacon that we forget that there's humanity involved. And it was a really great opportunity to do that. And I heard a few people that got triggered that came up to me afterwards, and I was able to talk with them and let them know that it was going to be fine. It's going to be okay, and we're going to be just fine. But just a remarkable reminder that life is more than politics, and certainly politics is an important place. There's a time and a place for it. There's also a time and place for neighbors and community members, and to forget about politics for a little window and enjoy maybe a human interaction with someone that is worthy of getting to know. So really wonderful time in that regards. I want to speak about Mother's Day. Wow. I remember as mayor 3-ish years ago, something like that, I really had this deep set feeling that Puyallup was on the verge of an explosion of prosperity on a holistic level. Not just economically, but I believe we're on the verge of exploding economically, politically, culturally, spiritually, just community-wise. And that continues to happen. Mother's Day was remarkable. We came down here with my family. We had a nice little dinner out on Giorgio's back patio, and this place was buzzing with people walking around, engaging. And what's cool about it is that this didn't happen by accident. You know, community stakeholders, community leaders, councils that have gone before us, everyone playing, businesses, the chamber and the Main Street, and everybody kind of creates this synergy, and it doesn't happen by accident. I think we've done a marvelous job of maintaining our history and our small town feel, but it has a resurgence of vibrancy that is alive and well. And very few cities can grasp that. And I hope we never, take for granted the special, place that we live in and most of us serve in that is just not, you don't find it in other cities, even neighboring cities. So it was just a wonderful reminder on Mother's Day weekend to just be part of something so special, and that people will come here because they want to spend time here because it's pretty cool. So let's continue to build on that and let's continue to work on that because we haven't even hit full stride yet. And of course, my shout out to Marla. I appreciate it. She's always watching the council meetings and she gets excited when I call her out. So there you are, Marla. That's for you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd just like to applaud Councilmember King for making the effort to organizing the opportunity to donate to our new flag memorial, and I invite patriots throughout the city to contribute to that effort and protect our city budget from needing to put money into that effort. So all you patriots, let's step up. The second thing on my agenda is Councilmember Adler and I attended a wild urban interface fire workshop in Tehela this week. And the Bonnie Lake Ridge Fire a few years ago puts us on notice that these kind of fires put areas of our community at serious risk and can create hazardous smoke conditions for many, many others. So the survivability of homes can be greatly enhanced by home maintenance practices, and we learned a lot about that at the thing. And the Pierce Conservation District is available to conduct free property assessments for homeowners and consult regarding landscaping and maintenance projects that will make their homes more fire resistant and fire survivable. So I encourage people to take the opportunity to get that free service and improve the situation around their homes. We don't like to think about having fires in our neighborhoods, but I live in Manorwood and there's a lot of big trees there, and if the tree fire gets up into the crown of those trees, we've got one heck of a problem. So, the workshop taught how to keep your landscaping such that it won't get into the crowns of your trees. So I find that really important. And if we all do that, then we're protected. If we don't all do that, then we're still at risk. The other thing I'd like to mention is food insecurity and homelessness are on the upswing recently, with 90 individuals showing up for meals at New Hope Resource Center. This is putting a strain on their resources, and the food bank is not able to supply all of those needs for some of the commodities that they need for their for their meals. Next steps are providing presentations. Oh, I'm sorry. The efforts of the county are ongoing to create a unified regional approach to homelessness. And next steps are providing presentations to City Council and negotiations regarding an interlocal agreement under which the unified regional approach to end homelessness would be pursued. The first presentation by the county regarding the Unified Regional Authority was in Edgewood this past week, and they're looking to put on presentations elsewhere, including Puyallup. So I just wanted to put you on notice, and we'll work to see if we can't get that on the schedule. Thank you, and that concludes our council reports. The council will now recess into executive session to discuss with city attorneys litigation or potential litigation to which the city council, or a council member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party. The executive session is expected to last 30 minutes, and no further action is expected following the executive session. So don't wait up for us. Thank you. Meeting recessed, I guess. Thank you.